Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in May 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. Today's session is going to be a bit longer than normal because we have to cover a lot. So in the first part, I will be sharing and answering and time management technique with you. And after doing so, I will take you through mock exam 1, which is our free mock exam, thereby highlighting how you should apply these answering and time management techniques in a practical sense. And I expect you to keep repeating or replicating the same techniques over and over when attempting the 6 mock exams which we have developed for you. And at the very end, I will be sharing certain tips which will ensure that you rebound from failure. There could be a set of students who are joining us today who received their results pertaining to the exams which happened in February 2025. And some of you, unfortunately, might have failed this exam. So there's no point of being demotivated or blaming yourself. Instead, you need to figure out what you need to do or how to fine-tune your preparations, thereby working smarter with the intention of passing the exams which are happening in May 2025 or August 2025. So before we get into the technicalities, let me quickly remind you of the upcoming webinars and workshops we have scheduled for you. The next webinar is happening on Saturday, the 19th of April at the same time at 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. UK or 9 GMT. And in this fourth webinar, exam prep, I will be taking you through the exam blueprint, thereby highlighting what the examiner tells us with regards to how to conduct our preparations, how to attempt, how to attempt mock exams and whatnot. So all these things will be explained in depth in the fourth webinar. And at the same time, I will share some tips with you to make sure that you build your confidence levels. Also, I will share stress management techniques with you at the fourth webinar. So it's a crucial webinar as well. And just like you attended this webinar, I hope you'd attend the upcoming webinar. And then we are kickstarting our workshop series, starting with the F3 workshop, in which I'm going to take you through the syllabus areas covered in your F3 syllabus. And after doing so, I will be taking you through one of the mock exams and its answer concerning what's highlighted within your F3 syllabus. And in either of these workshops, I will be conducting a Q&A session. So as per our study plans, when you are attending these workshops, you should be done with at least 3 mock exams. Definitely, you will have questions. So the best way to get these questions answered is to attend these webinars live so that you benefit from the Q&A session. So just like how I'm going to tackle your F3 syllabus, I will be focusing your attention towards your P3 and E3 syllabi in the second and third workshops. And in the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before the exam, I will share last minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity. So make use of these free resources on offer. Get in touch with us on a weekly basis, which is the best way to keep tabs about your performance. All right, so first things first, let's look at answering technique by understanding what an answer planning technique is all about. So most students, 99% of the students out there, what they do is at the exam, right after reading through the scenario and the information presented in each reference, and after referring to the reference material, they'd start typing out their fully fledged answer. So straight away, right after reading through the scenario, they'd start, typing out their fully fledged answer in paragraph form. However, at TCS, we are discouraging you to do so. Instead, you need to stick to an answering technique, which starts with developing something called an answer plan. So let me quickly show you what an answer plan usually looks like. So rather than typing out your fully fledged answer, which should be in paragraph form, before finalizing your answer, you should develop something such as this. This is an answer plan or an answer structure or a mind map, which highlights the type of answers which you need to include or the number of points which you need to include to gain the best amount of marks. So by sticking to this technique, right after reading the information presented in each scenario, you are spending a considerable amount of time to plan out your answer. So that is what these answer plans are all about. Before you finalize your answer, you need to spend some time to plan out your answer. Therefore, you need to develop something called an answer plan. So the steps which you need to adhere to when it comes to developing your answers is to first things first, read the scenario, which is going to take 5 minutes of your time. So let me quickly take you to one of the mock exams which we have developed, mock number 1. And if you look at the way in which your examination is structured, as you know, it consists of 3 main sections, and the time allocation for each section is 60 minutes. And in each section, you will see 2 or 3 subtasks. And within this paper, you can see that in each section, we have included 3 subtasks. And along with each subtask, we have also highlighted the weightages provided for each and every subtask. I will explain what these weightages are, and based on it, how we are supposed to determine mark allocations and whatnot. All these things will be discussed in a little while. So I just want to direct your attention towards section number 1. So in this, you can see that you are receiving an email from your CFO, and there's some information presented in here, and each requirement is shared with you clearly. And under each requirement or under each subtask, there's a weightage provided, as I mentioned earlier. And that's the same which you can see concerning subtask B and subtask C as well, where you have a lot of information at hand. And at the same time, additional information is shared via the reference material. So just like in a real life corporate environment, whenever you are receiving an email from your boss, the boss will highlight certain information. And based on this information, the boss will highlight what you're expected to achieve when developing your responses. And if your manager or your senior manager wants to share some type of additional information with you, you will gain access to some type of an attachment, which gives you additional information concerning the scenario at hand. So that's the exact same approach adopted by the CIMA examiner, because as I mentioned in the first and second webinars, the examiner tries to replicate a real life corporate environment. So it's as if you are receiving an email from a board member at your examination. All right, so that's how your questions are structured. So you have to take 5 minutes of your time to read through the scenario. Not just the scenario, you need to go through the reference material as well. So once you're done with it, then your next step should be to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So you are supposed to do this with the intention of gaining a clear understanding of each requirement. And at the same time, whilst planning out your answer, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether your answers are aligned with the information presented in the scenario and whether your answer is 100% aligned with the requirement at hand. Because most students end up failing this examination primarily given the fact that they do not understand the requirement clearly. So if you don't understand the requirement, you will think that you tackle the exam properly, but when the marks are out, you'd be disappointed to see that you have just scored 60 or 70 odd marks. Why is this the case? Mostly, this is due to you not understanding the requirement. So as per our answering technique, we are asking you to, right after reading through the scenario, we are asking you to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise or simpler manner, with the prime objective of understanding the requirement clearly. Because if you understand the requirement clearly, then you can gain the most amount of marks. So let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. So if you look at, yes, this is, let's look at a lengthy requirement. Yes, so if you look at section number 2, the requirements are quite, lengthy. So let's look at the first requirement. You are supposed to evaluate the ethical considerations of allowing competitors to license Leothayre satellite deorbiting technology. Consider how sharing this technology aligns with or contradicts the company's mission, vision, and values. So if you look at this requirement, this can be divided into two main parts. In the first part, you are supposed to talk about ethics pertaining to us sharing some technology with our competitors. And in the second part, you need to explain how us sharing this type of technology aligns or contradicts with our mission, vision, and values. So when you are operating in a time-pressured environment, when you have a lengthy requirement such as this, there's a tendency for you to read through this requirement over and over on multiple times. Still, you won't gain a good understanding of what this requirement is all about. Why is this the case? You are operating under extreme levels of stress. So when you are relaxed, you can easily read through this requirement and identify what you are expected to achieve. But at the exam, that is not the case. If you had completed or if you had attempted this SCS exam previously, you know what I'm talking about. When you are under stress, when you're operating in a time-pressured environment, there's a tendency for you to panic. And when you're panicking, it leads to brain freeze. This is a situation where you are trying to read through the requirement or you are trying to think, but nothing comes into your head or you cannot grasp what is highlighted within each scenario. So in order to avoid all these shortcomings, what we are supposed to do is you are supposed to reiterate the requirement in your own words in a concise manner. That's exactly what you can see here. I was referring to section 2, subtask A. So I've simplified this requirement in this manner. Ethics of allowing competitors to license deorbiting technology. So that's the first part of your requirement. And the second part is to talk about the alignment to vision, mission, and values. So when you have a simplified requirement at hand, as I mentioned earlier, you stand a chance to gain a clearer understanding of what the requirement is all about. And at the same time, whilst developing the answer plan, whilst planning out your answer, you can easily refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are developing an answer which is 100% aligned with your requirement. So before you develop the answer plan, you are supposed to simplify the requirement to gain a clearer understanding. And whilst developing the answer plan, you are supposed to always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are still headed in the correct direction. So that's the second step which you need to take. You are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. After you are done with it, you are supposed to come up with the headings and subheadings. So as per the CIMA examiner, you are supposed to develop a main heading per subtask. So when developing your answers, don't name the subtask. Don't say subtask A, subtask B, or subtask C. Instead, since the examiner is trying to replicate a real-life corporate environment, what you're supposed to do is you are supposed to develop a main heading per subtask. So in this mock exam, if you look at each section, there are 3 subtasks in total. So if there are 3 subtasks in your final answer, there should be 3 main headings, and each main heading should be in bold and underlined format. And under each subtask, if you feel that you want to further fraction out the answer, you can do so. When doing so, you can come up with subheadings, and these subheadings should be in bold format. So always remember, main headings should be in bold and underlined format, and subheadings should be in bold format. So let me quickly show you what I'm talking about by taking you through one of the suggested answers which we have developed for mock exam 1. So as you can see, I've come up with a main heading which reads as financial analyst's comment, which is in bold and underlined format. So this is the answer for the first subtask. And the answer for the second subtask, I have not mentioned the task number. Instead, I've simply come up with a main heading which goes as director's bonus, again in bold and underlined format. And also, if you look at the answer pertaining to subtask C, or the third subtask, I've come up with a main heading, again in bold and underlined format, which goes as managing stakeholders. So that's exactly what you're supposed to achieve when developing answers. And as I mentioned earlier, you can use subheadings as and when necessary. So for instance, if you look at how I've structured the answer for section number 3, I've come up with a main heading for the first subtask, which is in bold and underlined format. But in the first subtask, there are 2 main elements which I need to cover. So focused on each element, I've come up with a subheading which is in bold format. All right, so that's how you should tackle your formatting. And once you have developed your headings and subheadings, then you should move towards developing the answer plan or developing the answer structure. And when doing so, you are supposed to take 30 minutes of your time. As you know, the total the total time allocation is 60 minutes. So out of these 60 minutes, the first 5 minutes should be dedicated towards reading through the scenario. Then beyond that point, taking up the next chunk, which is the remaining 30 minutes, you need to develop the answer plan. So when developing this answer plan, first things first, you need to determine mark allocations based on the weightages provided. So as I mentioned earlier, under each subtask, you would have seen different weightages, and these weightages give us an indication about mark allocations. So before you develop the answer plan, before you determine how many points you need to include under each subtask, you need to consider these weightages. Based on these weightages, you need to determine mark allocations. After understanding mark allocations, then you are supposed to determine how many points you need to include under each subtask. So when you adhere to this methodology, you are taking steps to make sure that your answer is 100% aligned with mark allocations. Therefore, your answer will not be too long or too short. So let's see how we are supposed to achieve this. So let's look at, let's look at the mock exam. Where is this? Yes. So in the there's, you can see a weightage pertaining to subtask A, which comes up to 30%. The weightage for subtask B is 20%, and the weightage for subtask C is 50%. So let's try to understand how we are supposed to determine mark allocations based on these weightages. So that's exactly what you can see here. For the first subtask, the weightage is 30%, for the second one, 20%, and for the third one, 50%. So in total, your paper is marked out of 150. So we can easily assume that 50 marks are dedicated for each and every section. So there are 3 sections in your paper. So 50 into 3 sections come up to 150 in total. So each section, since it carries 50 marks, you can easily determine how much 30% of 50 marks is. It comes up to 15 marks. And 20% of 50 marks come up to 10 marks. And 50% of 50 marks come up to 25 marks in total. So that is how we are supposed to determine mark allocations based on the weightages. Once you have determined your mark allocations, then the next step is to determine how many points you need to include under each and every subtask. So what you need to understand is each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So if you are to score 15 marks, you need to either divide 15 by 2, which comes up to something like 7, or you need to divide 15 by 3, which comes up to 5. So if you are to score 15 marks, since each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points for the first subtask. Let me reiterate it once more. So the mark allocation according to the weightage is 50%, and each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So in order to gain 15 marks, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points concerning subtask A. And looking at subtask B, the mark allocation is 10 marks. Each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So in order to score 10 marks, you need to come up with something like 3 to 5 valid points for subtask B. And the mark allocation for subtask C is 25 marks. Each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So in order to score 25 marks, you need to roughly come up with 9 to 12 valid points. So before you develop the answer plan, you are determining how many points you need to include under each and every subtask, with the intention of ensuring that you develop answers which are totally aligned with the mark allocations, aligned with the weightages provided under each and every subtask. So that's your fourth step. When before developing the answer plan, determine mark allocations based on weightages, and as I mentioned earlier, each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks per answer point. And once you have determined how many points you need to include within each and every subtask, then you need to kickstart developing your answer plan. When doing so, develop the answer plan or the answer structure or plan out your answer on the answer screen itself. Do not utilize the scratch pad. Why am I asking you not to develop the answer plan in the scratch pad? Firstly, to avoid unnecessary complexities. Because when you are operating under a stressful situation, when you have to shift between two different screens, it won't make your life easy. Instead, it's prudent for you to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And the second objective of developing the answer plan on the answer screen rather than on the scratch pad is to make sure that your final answer considers all the points which you intended to include under each and every subtask. So let's assume for subtask A, you planned to include 7 valid points and you did your answer plan within the scratch pad. And when you are shifting between the scratch pad and the answer screen, although you have already included 7 valid points in your answer plan, due to stress, due to complexities, you miss out on one of the answers. So in your fully fledged answer, there's only 6 points. However, you intended to include 7 points. So why should you leave out a certain point just because you develop the answer plan on the scratch pad? So don't develop the answer plan on the scratch pad. Instead, do it on your answer screen itself. If that is the case, you will not miss out on any of the points which appears within your answer plan when it comes to finalizing your answer. So develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. Don't utilize the scratch pad. So once you have developed the answer plan concerning all subtasks, so you are supposed to take 30 minutes to develop the answer plan concerning all subtasks. So if there are 3 subtasks, you need to have 3 different answer plans which should be developed within 30 minutes. And if there are just 2 subtasks, then you need to develop the answer plans focused on both these subtasks within 30 minutes. And once you're done with it, then your next step is to expand the answer plan. So after you have an answer structure or an answer plan at your disposal, you should then expand the answer plan in paragraph form, thereby finalizing your answer. So when it comes to expanding your answer plan, you are supposed to utilize the remaining time, which is 20 to 25 minutes of your time, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So let's assume in subtask A, you determined or you thought to include 7 valid points. Then in your final answer, there should be 7 different paragraphs, and each paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 line sentences. So let me quickly show you how you should finalize your answer. So let's assume for section 1 or task 1, under the first subtask, you came up with an answer plan which looks like this. So you have an answer skeleton. And then once you have the answer skeleton or the answer structure at your disposal, when it comes to finalizing your answer, you should finalize it in paragraph form, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So if there are 7 valid points within your answer plan, then in your final answer, which should be in paragraph form, there should be 7 different paragraphs. And you can clearly see that I've not written the entire answer in one single paragraph. Instead, I've divided the paragraphs so that the marker can easily figure out how many points you have included within your answer. So the marker can easily count the number of paragraphs. So if you look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so there are 10 paragraphs in total. So the marker will know, okay, this individual had come up with 10 different paragraphs. And then the marker can see which of the paragraphs are accurate and which of the paragraphs are inaccurate. And based on it, the marker can easily provide provide marks for the entire subtask. So it's best to be in the good books of the marker. It's best to help your marker, because if so, let's assume you have gained something like 77 marks and you just need 3 marks to pass. If you're in the good books of the marker will, try to, give you some additional marks to make sure that you pass. Why? Because you have taken steps to help your marker. So always remember, when it comes to finalizing your answer, don't write the entire answer within one single paragraph. Instead, per answer point, develop a separate paragraph so that you take steps to help the marker? If so, the marker in return might help you as well. All right, so that's the answering technique which you need to adhere to. So if you stick to this answering technique, you are not trying to multitask. Instead, you are dedicating 5 minutes of your time to read, 30 minutes of your time to plan, and 25 minutes of your time to type. And when it comes to typing or expanding your answer plan, you are not supposed to think, because most students, as I mentioned earlier, right after reading through the scenario, they'd start typing out their final answer. When doing so, they are trying to juggle between thinking or planning and typing. When you are operating in a stressful environment, when you are operating in a time pressured environment, when you are experiencing fatigue, you cannot do two things at the same time. You can't think and type. Instead, it's essential that you take some time to think, and once you know what you should include in your answer, when it comes to typing, there's no thinking involved. It's simply a matter of expanding each main point in paragraph form, thereby explaining your or justifying your argument. So explaining each point in paragraph form. So stick to this. If you stick to this answering technique, you will not run out of time at your real examination. And at the same time, you are taking steps to effectively develop answers which are 100% aligned with each requirement. Also, you are taking steps to plan out your answer, because that's exactly what you would do in a real life corporate environment. Let's assume you receive an email from your superior. After reading through the information presented, will you simply start typing out your response, or will you take some time to plan out your response, trying to figure out what the requirement is, trying to figure out whether you have addressed all the information, or whether you have covered all the information which appears within the email's body? You will take some time to structure your answer appropriately. Once you have a structure at your disposal, then you'd take steps to type out your final email. So you need to replicate a similar methodology at your exam. If you do so, you will gain extremely good marks at your real examination. So although I've taught you these things, although you know how to structure answers, how to plan out your answers, and how to manage your time, if you don't practice this technique, you won't master it. For instance, if we have given you the opportunity to attempt mock number 1 via TCS's exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system. So when attempting mock exam 1, I want you guys to implement these techniques and see whether it works. For instance, although I'm asking you to dedicate 30 minutes of your time to plan the answer, when you do it for the first time, it will take 45 to 50 minutes. All right, then you'd be frustrated. You'd keep thinking, okay, Nick said, he asked us to develop the answer plan within 30 minutes, but I am not capable of doing it. So I want you to feel this way when attempting mock exams, because when this is the case, you will know for a fact that it is essential that you master this technique. And the only way to master this technique is to keep practicing. So it's as if you are doing something new. So it's as if you are riding a vehicle for the first time. So, after going for driving classes, you'd have to spend some time to get your bearings with, when you are, driving a vehicle. And, you take some time to feel comfortable with, riding or driving a vehicle. So likewise, in this examination, when trying to master these answering and time management techniques, just because you have learned these things, you won't be able to implement them straight away in a successful manner. Instead, you have to get your bearings with these techniques. And the only way to do this is to keep practicing this technique over and over across the 6 mock exams which we have developed. If you do so, in each mock exam, there are 3 sections. So 3 sections into 6 mocks come up to 18 sections in total. So once you are conversant with once you have practiced this technique 18 times over, you will successfully manage your time at your real exam. And at the same time, you will successfully develop answer plans or structure your answers appropriately. If so, you will gain extremely good marks at your real examination. So I want you guys to keep practicing these techniques. That's exactly why even if you do not invest on our paid content, you still have access to mock exam 1 via our exam platform. Implement these techniques and see where you are at. Then it's best that you are exposed to stressful situations. It's best that you are exposed to complexities when conducting your preparations rather than at your real exam. So that's why it's essential to attempt each mock exam under exam conditions. If so, you can take steps to manage your stress levels when conducting preparations in the upcoming 5 weeks. And if that is the case, you will manage stressful situations at your real examination. All right, so talking further about the answering technique, as I mentioned earlier, you need to develop a heading per subtask, which should be in bold and underlined format, and you can come up with subheadings as well as and when necessary. And if so, subheading should be in bold format. And the typing speed is expected typing speed is 20 words per minute. So if your typing speed is not up to the required standard, then you will run out of time at your real examination. So there's a lot of free platforms out there which will help you to test your typing speed. And at the same time, if you feel that your typing speed is not up to the required standard, then as I mentioned earlier, as you are supposed to practice answering and time management techniques, if you want to improve your typing speed, you need to start typing or you need to practice typing. So again, there's a lot of resources out there which are intended to help you improve your typing speed, or you can easily do this by purchasing a newspaper and dedicating an hour of your time on a daily basis and typing out what appears in the newspaper on your computer or on your laptop, because the only way to improve your typing speed is to practice your typing speed. And when it comes to finalizing your answer, your final answer should be in paragraph form, and each paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 line sentences. And per valid point, you need to develop a paragraph. And do not spend time on formatting. The only type of formatting which you have to be conversant with is with regards to the headings, the subheadings, and developing answers in paragraph form. Other than that, don't worry about paragraph alignment and whatnot. You won't gain any marks for these elements. And always remember, the examiner is looking at the quality of your answer, not the quantity. So I've heard tutors out there saying that to gain an X amount of marks, you need to come up with an X amount of words within the answer. However, the examiner specifically clearly mentions in the exam blueprint that the markers are looking at the quality of your answer. So that is exactly why I mentioned that you are supposed to determine mark allocations based on the weightages, and based on these weightages, you can easily determine how many points you need to include within each and every subtask. So you should take steps. Your attention should be to understand how many points you need to include under each and every subtask and cover it when developing your answers. Other than that, just because you provide lengthy answers, you are not going to get any marks. Why is this the case? Because as I've mentioned earlier, the examiner is trying to replicate a real-life corporate environment. So in a real-life corporate environment, always think whether your superior is going to look at the length of your response or the quality of your response. Just because you come up with a lengthy response, if you have not addressed the requirement, if you have not considered the information which your superior shared with you, you won't be successful. The superior will, reply to your email and say, okay, I'm not satisfied with your evaluation, do it once more. So at the exam, if you are not thinking in terms of quality, then the marker will say, okay, do this exam once more. So rather than repeating this exam, rather than trying to come up with extremely lengthy answers which will not ensure that you gain a lot of marks, instead focus on quality. That is exactly why at TCS we don't talk about a word count or a word limit. Instead, we are talking in terms of answer points, because the examiner is looking at the quality, not the quantity. All right, so having said that, let me quickly take you through the exam platform so that you understand the technicalities behind the exam platform. So if you are coming through a general route, or if you are coming through Master's Gateway or FLP, You might have already completed your OCS and MCS exams. If so, you know how the Pearson VUE system works, but some of you might have landed at SCS straight away. So it's best that you get your bearings with the technicalities pertaining to your exam platform. So us at TCS, we have developed an exam platform which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you attempt your real exam, with the intention of making sure that you have the capability of attempting each mock exam under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, I will be sharing stress management techniques with you in the fourth webinar, upcoming webinar. And once you have understood these stress management techniques, I expect you to keep implementing these stress management techniques when attempting mock 4 onwards. All right, so when you start your exam, you will be directed to such a page, and once you click on begin, you will be directed to section number 1. And as you can see, there's a timer which keeps running out from 60 to 0, and you can see a section number. There are 3 sections, and you are in section number 1. And there are 4 different buttons: a calculator button, a scratch pad, reference material, and pre-seen. So once you click on the calculator button, you gain access to a calculator on which you are supposed to do minor calculations such as reworking the gearing ratio and whatnot. And if you want to jot down some information which appears within your scenario, you can do so on the scratch pad only if necessary. If I were you, I won't use this. And you'd also gain access to the reference material, which gives you additional information about what is included as part of your scenario. And you also have access to your pre-seen document if you click on this button. And once you click on next, so within this screen itself, let's assume you click on the reference material button. When you do so, onto the right of your screen, you would see the additional information so that you can easily read through the information within one single screen. And once you click on next, you would be directed to the answer screen. And as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to developing the answer plan, do it on this answer screen itself. Why am I saying this? Because you have access to the reference material and the pre-seen information within the answer screen itself. So onto the right of your screen, you will gain access to the reference material. And on top of that, you have access to the pre-seen again onto the right of your answer screen. And you also have access to your requirement or the task. So you need not always go back to the requirement or the task to see what you're supposed to achieve. Instead, you can gain access to the same information under a separate pop-up which appears to the right side of your screen. So you need not always, go back to the requirement screen. Instead, within the answer screen itself, you have access to the reference material, you have access to the pre-seen document, you have access to the task information. So that's why I'm asking you to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself, because you can always refer to the information presented, the reference material, the pre-seen onto the right of your screen. Whilst doing so, develop the answer plan in here. Once you have developed the answer plan, when it comes to typing, close off all these pop-ups and simply expand each valid point in paragraph form. So that's what you're supposed to do. And once you are done, finalizing your answer, when you click on submit answer, a pop-up will appear which asks whether you really want to move to the next section. And once you click on yes, you would be directed to section number 2. And when you are in section number 2, you can see that there is no previous button. Why is this the case? Because when you're done with section number 1 and when you are at section number 2, you can't go back to your previous section. So the same applies to a situation where you are in section number 3. If you are in section number 3, you can't go back to section number 1 or 2. So that is exactly why when it comes to managing your time or planning out how to manage your time, you need to think in terms of 3 slots of 60 minutes each, rather than coming up with a time management plan which spans across 3 hours. So you need to think in terms of 3 slots of 60 minutes each. And some students try to outsmart this system by not clicking on yes or no. So let's assume you are done with section number 1. You have finalized your answer as well. And, once you click on submit answer, this pop-up comes up and you wait without clicking on either yes or no. And some students at the exam, they tend to take a 5-minute break by not clicking either of these buttons. Even if you do not click on either of these buttons, you will be directed to the next section. You won't know it. You will be on the same screen. But once your time allocation runs out, once your first 60 minutes run out, then the timer of the second section will keep running out, even if you do not click on either of these buttons. So just don't think that since you have not pressed on either of these buttons, you are saving time or you are getting some additional time. That is not going to be the case. Once the first 60 minutes run out, the timer of the second section will keep running out, and the same applies to the third section as well. So we have developed the exam platform in the same methodology, in the same way. So to make sure that you are exposed to all these type of issues when conducting your preparations, so that you can avoid all these type of issues and you have a good understanding about the technicalities behind your exam platform. If so, you will not struggle at your real examination. All right, so that's how your exam platform is structured, the technicalities behind it. And then let's move on to the discussion of one of the mock exams which we have developed for you, thereby trying to understand how to implement the answering technique which I highlighted a while back. Before we do so, let me quickly take you to our website to explain what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page, and if you're yet to check your free content, click on this button and create a free user account. Once you have done so, you will gain access to our student dashboard. So click on this button and go to My Courses. And under My Courses, in front of SCS Free, you will see an Access Content button. Click on it. And once you are in our student dashboard, you would gain access to a Videos tab, thereby gaining access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops which we conduct. You will also gain access to free study material, which includes the syllabus areas covered within your SCS exam. So when conducting your preparations, you have to make sure that you cover all these syllabus elements when attempting your mock exams. And you'd also gain access to the pre-seen document, and we have developed a pre-seen mind map. You will gain access to this pre-seen mind map via the free content as well. And also under the mocks tab, you will gain access to mock exam 1 free of charge and its suggested answer. And under the exams tab, by clicking on SCS mock 1, you can start attempting mock exam 1 under exam conditions, which is the best way to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. So make use of the free resources on offer by clicking on the check free content button. And if you are interested in investing on our paid content, click on this button and check our sample material before you do so. And if you are yet to join our SCS WhatsApp group, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we will keep you guys informed about the weekly webinars and workshops, the commencement dates and times. And at the same time, we will share hordes of free resources with you. Also, if you have any questions and concerns, you can always get them addressed by dropping a message on this group. I'm always there to help you guys out. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the essential course and the premium course. The essential course is designed for those who had completed their E3, P3, and F3 OTQs. So since you have completed your OTQs, you are already conversant with all theoretical concepts. Your job is to simply work on improving your application skills. So under the essential course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all webinars and workshops which we conduct on a weekly basis, 6 mock exams with suggested answers. So we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas when developing these 6 mock exams. And if you had referred to past exam variants or past papers, you would have seen that the examiner develops 6 different variants focused on each pre-seen document. Why 6 variants? Because the examiner intends to cover all syllabus areas. So you can't cover all syllabus areas by developing just 3 or 4 mock exams. Instead, you need to get your bearings with how each syllabus area is tested by attempting 6 mock exams. And also you gain access to the pre-scene analysis videos, 4 videos in total. So once you have watched these pre-scene analysis videos, you need not do anything to decrypt pre-scene information. We have covered it for you. And you'd also gain access to the annotated pre-scene industry analysis and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. So this is what our annotated pre-scene looks like. So we have come up with annotations with the intention of summarizing pre-scene information, which makes your life easy when it comes to gaining a clearer understanding of the most important points highlighted within your pre-scene. And at the same time, we have conducted our own evaluations, thereby highlighting any type of shortcomings within your chosen company or any opportunities we can exploit, any type of strengths we possess. All these things are highlighted within these annotations. Also, tied to this information, probable exam scenarios which can be tested are highlighted within the same pre-scene. So it makes your life easy to understand the most important points, also to understand the probable scenarios which can be thrown at you at your real exam, and tied to these scenarios, you can easily understand what type of syllabus elements can be tested at your real examination. And when developing our mock exams, we have made sure to cover all these exam scenarios and the syllabus elements tied to each and every scenario. And looking at the industry analysis slides, this is divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined the industry. And in the second part, we have explained information concerning the competitive landscape. And in the third part, we have explained industry trends. Mind you, based on these industry trends, scenarios will be thrown at you at your real examination. And at the very end, real world examples concerning 2 real life companies are included to make sure that you gain a better understanding of how real life companies operate within your chosen industry. And talking about the financial analysis slides, we have evaluated each financial statement in depth, yet making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily understand what appears within each financial statement. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, and the statement of changes in equity. And we have also conducted a ratio analysis. Again, we have evaluated each ratio comparing your company's performance against its closest competitor, so that in one single place, you stand a chance to understand the financial standing of your chosen company against its closest competitor. So these are the resources on offer if you invest on the essential course. You'd also gain access to the top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most prominent scenarios which can be tested at your exam. You will gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you read through this kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you can gain an in-depth understanding about the technicalities behind the SCS exam. You will gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So as I mentioned earlier, the essential course is designed for those who are coming through the general route. So after attempting each mock exam on your own, if you feel that you struggled with a certain subtask or you cannot remember a certain theoretical concept, simply refer to our OTQ revision cards. In a jiffy, you are in a position to brush up your knowledge concerning what's highlighted within each and every OTQ syllabus. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course, this is designed for those who are coming through the exemption route and those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and application. So most students who are coming through exemptions, you will be conversant with your E3 syllabus, because the E3 syllabus has everything to do with the rational planning model and alternatives to the rational planning model. So the rational planning model is covered in any given academic course. However, when it comes to your P3 and F3 syllabi, this is where you will have knowledge gaps. So if you are to be successful in your upcoming exam, it is essential that you learn all theoretical concepts covered in the SCS syllabus, because if you are not too conversant with all syllabus areas, you are taking a chance at your real examination. So that is exactly why we have taken steps to develop 6 mocks to cover all syllabus areas, to make sure that you gain a good understanding of how each syllabus area is tested at the exam, and at the same time to make sure that you learn theory and improve your application skills. We have developed some additional resources and included them under the premium course. So under the premium course, on top of what you'd gain access to under the essential course, you will gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 6 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also receive one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback on offer. So as you can see, we have evaluated each and every paragraph, each and every point in depth, with the intention of highlighting your shortcomings, because the objective of opting for tutor feedback is to understand your shortcomings, because without understanding your shortcomings, you can't take steps to avoid them when conducting your preparations, or you can't take steps to improve your answering technique. So we have provided in-depth evaluations, as you can see, throughout this answer script, thereby highlighting the shortcomings of the student. And at the very end, we have indicated marks on a subtask by subtask basis. Not just marks, we have also indicated a success rate. So by looking at the success rate, you can easily understand the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. As you can see, this student has only gained 31 marks. So because of that, you can see that in all the subtasks, the student has not achieved the threshold success rate, which is 54%. So after receiving this type of mark allocations and receiving information concerning the success rate, your job is to redevelop answer plans, thereby reworking on your answering technique, which is the only way to fine-tune your application skills. So if you scored 70 marks or 70 marks or higher at your exam, yet if you failed, then this indicates the fact that there are issues with application. So if that is the case, the only way you have to take steps to improve your application skills, and the only way to improve your application skills is by redeveloping answer plans. So there's no point of attempting a mock exam and trying to go back to your study notes or your bulky study texts and trying to go through theoretical elements, because at this exam, a higher level of prominence is provided towards testing your application skills. So the only way to improve your application skills is to redevelop answer plans. And although this student only achieved 31 marks for this mock exam, at the real exam, this student achieved 88 marks, and she achieved this feat by redeveloping answer plans. And at the very end, we provide general comments as well, thereby further highlighting the type of general shortcomings which we have understood by going through your answer script. So that's the type of feedback on offer under the premium course. And you'd also gain access to answer plans of all 6 mock exams. In a little while, you will see what an answer plan looks like and how beneficial it is for you, especially when it comes to conducting revision. Because after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to refer to the answer plan. That is when you understand what you should have included within your answer, how many points you should have included within each subtask, and how to bring in theoretical knowledge, thereby working on your application skills. And after going through these answer plans, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans at your leisure without timing yourself. Try to understand whether you have the capability of redeveloping answer plans which are akin to TCSs. After you had redeveloped fresh answer plans, compare your answer plans to TCSs to further enhance your application skills and answering technique. And you'd also gain access to 15 master classes. So in each mock exam, there are 3 tasks. So from mock 2 onwards, you will gain access to the master classes. So from mocks 2 to 5, there are 15 tasks in total. So focused on each section or each task, we have developed master classes with the intention of taking you through the logic of each answer, and at the same time teaching you the theoretical concept covered in each section, and also teaching you application skills or how to work on your application. So if you are to learn theory and improve application, the easiest way to do so is to rely on these master classes, which are 100% aligned with the mock exams which we have developed. So the easiest way to improve application is by relying on these master classes. Since these master classes are aligned with each and every mock exam which we have developed, there's no point of learning theory in isolation and trying to work on application on your own. We have covered it for you. By watching these master classes, you can learn theory and at the same time understand application. And in a little while, you will see how we conduct our master classes, because when taking you through the answer plan concerning section 3, subtask 3 of mock exam 1, you will understand how we conduct our master classes. And once you have access to all this content, you will pass for sure, hence the pass guarantee. So if you invest on the premium content and end up failing, you will gain access to the premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim the pass guarantee, you have to complete these 3 requirements. You have to complete all 6 mock exams. Just because you invest on premium, you can't pass. You have to attempt all 6 mock exams. And then when attempting each mock exam, do it on your own. Don't refer to the suggested answers, the answer plans, or the master classes, because the objective of you attempting mock exams under exam conditions is to see how you tackle with exam pressure, is to see whether you are capable of sticking to the answering, time management, and stress management techniques which we teach, and also to figure out whether you are capable of developing high quality answers. And because you can always improve your application skills, answering technique when you are conducting revision. So when attempting each mock exam, be honest to yourself, do it on your own without any help, which is the best way to learn through your mistakes. And you have to achieve the performance criteria, which is to achieve a score which is 40% or higher, focused on the last 3 mock exams. We have come up with this performance criteria to make sure that you do a serious job when attempting the last 3 mock exams, because when you're done with the first 3 mocks, you will get a good understanding of, get your bearings with the answering and time management techniques. So from mock 4 onwards, you have to do a serious job. If so, you stand a chance to really understand what your shortcomings are. And once you have completed all these requirements, you will pass for sure. That is why we are providing a pass guarantee for the premium course. So the premium course is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 monthly installments of £424 each, or if you opt to pay in full, the price is just £749. So you can click on either of these buttons and invest on your preferred course. And all products are available until the 30th of August 2025. So if you're planning on sitting for sessions happening in August 2025, you can invest now and start preparations, which gives you some additional time for preparations. And let me quickly take you to the SCS study plan before I take you through the mock exam. So as per the study plan, let's try to figure out what we are supposed to achieve within this week. So we are in week number 3, which is the most hectic week as per our study plan, because from week 4 onwards, you are supposed to dedicate just 9 hours of study time. However, within this week, you need to find 12 hours. Why 12 hours? Because within this week, you are supposed to attempt 2 mock exams and conduct revision concerning the first 2 mock exams. So within this week, since you have attended this webinar, you have learned your answering and time management techniques, then your next step should be to implement these techniques when attempting mock exam 1 under exam conditions via our exam platform. And after you are done with it, attempt mock number 2 via the exam platform. Don't worry about the answers concerning mock exam 1, because mock 1, the objective of attempting mock 1 is to see whether you are capable of managing your stress levels, the type of issues you face when operating under exam conditions. You need to see whether you are running out of time, whether you are capable of structuring your answers appropriately. So the objective is to get your bearings with exam conditions. And once you're done with mock exam 1, attempt mock number 2 under exam conditions via the exam platform. Once you're done with it, watch the 3 master classes with the intention of understanding the logic behind each answer, learning the theoretical concepts covered within each subtask, and to learn application skills. After you have learned your theory and application, test your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans. It is essential that you conduct your revision by redeveloping answer plans. Don't expect to pass this exam simply by attempting the 6 mocks and watching the master classes. You have to test your knowledge and see whether you are capable of redeveloping answer plans which are akin to TCS's. So if you revise, then you are effectively taking steps to improve your application skills and testing whether you are capable of developing answers which are aligned with the required level of standard. So within this week, you have to attempt 2 mock exams. So if you are yet to start your preparations, it's essential that you start right now. And if you are yet to start, watch the pre-scene analysis videos, go through the annotated pre-scene on your own. Once you're done with it, start attempting mock exams. Finish off mocks 1 and 2 within this week, so that from next week onwards you can start relaxing. It's simply a matter of attempting 1 mock exam per week and conducting revision focused on the same mock exam. So don't wait until the last moment to start preparations. Start right now. You have 5 full weeks at your disposal, which is enough and more time for you to attempt all mocks and conduct your revision. And at the same time, if you wait until the last 2 or 3 weeks, although you will have enough time to attempt the 6 mock exams, you won't have time to conduct revision. Revising is essential to improve your chances of passing the SCS exam. So I hope you'd stick to the study plan in the upcoming weeks. So having said that, let's move on to the mock exam discussion. So before we move on to the mock exam discussion, let me quickly remind you what you need to do when it comes to developing answers. So first things first, you are supposed to read through the scenario by taking 5 minutes of your time. All right, so let's look at how we are supposed to achieve this. So, all right, we are in section number 1, and I'm going to take you through a question concerning subtask C, the largest subtask of this section. On an unrelated matter, I'm sharing an article which was published on Wexland News. Please refer to the attachment. So let's try to read through the information to see what's highlighted within this document. All right, so this is a newspaper article taken from Wexland News. The title goes as Clear Skies, Dirty Orbits. All right, so this is written by Keely Duran, the environment correspondent of Wexland News. And let's look at the information. Public concern is mounting over the satellite manufacturing industry's growing environmental footprint. Yes, environmental groups, policy analysts, and global think tanks are warning that the sector's contribution to space debris and upper atmosphere pollution is becoming unsustainable. So environmental groups, policy analysts, and global think tanks are criticizing the players within the satellite manufacturing industry due to their operations. We are exposed to a space debris problem. A report by the Wexland Environmental Forum highlighted how rocket launches emit large volumes of greenhouse gases and soot, which remain in the upper atmosphere and can cause long-term climate harm. So this industry is harming the climate, and rocket launches may last minutes, but their environmental consequences can last decades. So, a sustainability advisor is saying that, and she cited toxic fuel residues and failing components and persistent hazards in Earth's orbit. And the rise of CubeSats and small satellites often launched in bulk is the main issue. Many lack effective deorbiting mechanisms, increasing the volume of space debris. So, we are contributing directly towards the space debris problem as a small satellite manufacturer. And at the same time, we are contributing towards global warming and air pollution. With over 10,000 satellites already in orbit, a figure set to double, experts are urging immediate action to prevent future collisions and orbital congestion. Activist movements like #CleanUpTheOrbit are gaining traction, calling for transparency and accountability in satellite design and end-of-life planning and propulsion technology. So the public or activist movements have joined the bandwagon, thereby criticizing the players within this industry. While global regulation remains limited, governments are responding through voluntary efforts like the Space Junk Charter which promotes safe deorbiting and the reduction of in-orbit debris and explosion risk. So the government has been impacted by all this noise, which is created by advocacy groups, activists, as well as the general public. And a set of scientists said the same thing, criticizing the satellite manufacturers within this industry. And the industry leaders acknowledge the issue, but caution that stricter design standards may raise costs. So it's bad for our industry, these type of regulations, these type of thinking in terms of sustainability and emissions and deorbiting technology. It's going to expose us to additional costs in the future. Still, pressure from governments, the public, and ESG-focused investors is growing. So investors are playing a role as well. Investors are pushing companies towards adopting better ESG standards, and companies that do not act may face reputational damage, divestment, and loss of customers. So some customers might leave us as well if we don't fall in line with the Space Junk Charter, or if we don't take steps to improve our or decrease rather our carbon footprint. All right, so that's the type of information presented in the reference material. Let's try to figure out what your requirement is. You are supposed to recommend comprehensive strategies for Leothayre to effectively manage stakeholder pressures created due to environmental issues. All right, so that's your requirement. So we have read through the scenario, thereby adhering to the first step of your answering technique. We have read through the scenario. And once you're done with it, you are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. All right, so the requirement is this: recommend comprehensive strategies for Leothayre to effectively manage stakeholder pressure created due to environmental issues. So the second step is to reiterate the requirement in your own words in a concise manner. That's exactly what you can see here: strategies to manage stakeholder pressure. So I've simplified it so that you can gain a clear understanding of the requirement, and whilst developing the answer plan, it makes your life easy when you have access to a simplified requirement, so that you can easily refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are developing an answer which is totally aligned with your requirement. So strategies to manage stakeholder pressure, I've simplified the requirement. And your next step is to develop headings and subheadings. So I've come up with a main heading which goes as managing stakeholders, which is in bold and underlined format. After doing so, you are supposed to develop the answer plan by taking 30 minutes of your time. And before you develop the answer plan, you are supposed to determine mark allocations based on the weightages. So the weightage provided is 50%. So in total, 50 marks are dedicated towards section number 1. So 50% of 50 marks come out to 25 marks in total. And as I mentioned earlier, each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So in order to gain 25 marks, you need to come up with 9 to 12 valid points within your answer plan. 9 to 12 valid points. So we know how many points we should include within the answer plan. Once we are aware of it, we have to start developing the answer plan or the mind map or the answer structure. So let's look at what you should cover in your answer. So let me take you to the answer plan concerning section 1, subtask C of mock exam 1. So I've come up with a main heading which goes as managing stakeholders. And when it comes to managing stakeholders, you need to utilize the knowledge which you have gained via your E3 syllabus concerning the Mendelow's matrix. So as I mentioned earlier, if you don't know theoretical concepts, chances of you passing this exam is extremely low, because you can come up with your own evaluations with the intention of managing stakeholders. However, in order to develop holistic answers, it's essential that you bring in theoretical concepts when developing answers. So let's assume there's a question to do with strategic options. You are supposed to evaluate different strategic options. When doing so, you can look at the pros and cons of some type of an opportunity which we are trying to exploit. However, the best way to evaluate strategic options is to utilize the SAF framework, the suitability, acceptability, and feasibility framework. If you do so, you are considering multiple angles when conducting your evaluation, thereby coming up with the best type of answer. So in this question as well, the examiner is directly testing your theoretical knowledge, and at the same time, the examiner is directly testing your application skills. So that is why I chose this question to be discussed within today's webinar, so that you gain a clear understanding of how your theory can be tested and how you need to fine-tune your application skills. So when it comes to managing stakeholders, you need to utilize your knowledge which you have gained via the Mendelow's matrix. So let me quickly explain what the Mendelow's matrix is all about. So as per the Mendelow's matrix, we have to categorize each type of stakeholder considering quadrants. And when carrying out this type of categorization, we need to consider the level of power of each stakeholder and the level of interest. Some stakeholders might have a high level of power, while some would only have a low level of power. And with regards to the level of interest, some might have a high level of interest or some might have a low level of interest. So based on their power and interest levels, we are supposed to categorize each of our stakeholders. When we are done with it, we know how to manage each stakeholder in a successful manner. So when dealing with the type of stakeholders who have a high level of power and a high level of interest, we know for a fact that we should consider these type of stakeholders as key players. So we should let them involve themselves. We should let them involve themselves with the way in which we run our business. We have to always listen to them. We have to always take steps to satisfy them. And as and when necessary, we have to let them involve with our business, since these type of stakeholders are considered as key players. And then looking at the other type of stakeholders who have a high level of power but a low level of interest, it's simply a matter of keeping them satisfied. So we have to listen to them and operate within the frameworks set by these type of stakeholders. So usually the government and regulators fall under this category. So companies, what they do is, with the intention of satisfying the government or regulators, we have to make sure that we always fall in line with the laws and regulations which govern our industry. And at the same time, we have to pay our taxes on time. If so, the government and the regulators will be satisfied. So that's a keep satisfied strategy. Most governments and in most instances, the government and regulators have a high level of power, but they are not too concerned about how we run our business. All right, then looking at the keep informed quadrant. So these are the type of stakeholders who are categorized due to their low level of power but a high level of interest. So these stakeholders don't have a lot of power, but they have a high level of interest. So with the intention of making sure that these stakeholders remain within this quadrant, rather than becoming key players, we have to keep these individuals informed. Why am I saying this? Now, for instance, let's assume, as per what's highlighted within the requirement which we read a while back, as per what appears within the news article taken from Wexland News, there was a mention about advocacy groups. So these advocacy groups have a high level of interest about the space debris problem, about the pollution tied to this industry. However, as individuals or as individual groups, they have a low level of power. So because of that, we can categorize them under the keep informed quadrant. However, although that is the case, they can take steps to unionize themselves, get together, and try and influence the government and regulators. If so, if they unionize or if they come together, their level of power will increase to a higher level. So at the moment, their level of power is low, but in the future, their level of power might increase to a higher level. If so, they might become key players. If that is the case, we will have to engage with them directly and make sure that we always listen to them and satisfy them when running our business. So in order to avoid such a situation, in order to make sure that we keep them within this quadrant, we have to keep them informed. So we have to feed all the information necessary with the intention of making sure that these individuals remain within this quadrant. If not, a lack of information leads to misinformation, leads to gossip, and gossip leads to adverse situations which will work against us. So that's a keep informed strategy. And if we are dealing with a set of stakeholders who are not too interested about what the type of business we are into, and if the power is extremely low, then we need not actually worry about them. That's why we consider this quadrant as a minimal effort quadrant. So the strategy is to just not think about these type of stakeholders, because they are not interested about us, and at the same time they don't have any power over us. So that's your Mendelow matrix. And after understanding what the Mendelow's matrix is all about, then your next step is to implement this theoretical concept when developing your answer. So all in all, what you need to understand is, if there's a question to do with stakeholder management, always use the Mendelow's matrix. Don't mention the Mendelow's matrix by name. Don't try to explain the Mendelow's matrix, because when marking papers, I've seen students trying to explain the theoretical concept. Your CFO is not interested to learn about the Mendelow's matrix. Instead, the CFO wants a direct answer. So when developing your answer, although you are supposed to utilize your knowledge which you have gained via the Mendelow's matrix, it is not about explaining a theoretical concept. Instead, it is all about applying a theoretical concept, considering the information presented to you. All right, so let's look at how we are supposed to tackle this type of a question. So we have to identify and manage main type of stakeholders. So first things first, we have to identify the type of stakeholders as per what's highlighted within Wexland Daily. So there's a mention about environmental advocacy groups. There's a mention about the government and regulators. There's a mention about investors and shareholders, especially those who have ESG related interests. And there's a mention about clients, and there's a mention about general public and media as well. So first things first, you need to identify each type of stakeholder. So that is exactly why you need to, sometimes you might have to go through this information once more to figure out what type of stakeholders you are supposed to highlight within your answer. All right, so these are the type of stakeholders. After identifying the stakeholders, you are supposed to take steps to manage them. And before managing them, as per the Mendelow's matrix, we have to categorize them. And when it comes to categorizing stakeholders, we have to consider the level of interest and power of each type of stakeholders who we are dealing with at the moment. So considering the environmental advocacy groups, as I mentioned earlier, whilst explaining the Mendelow's matrix, I said that their level of interest is high. However, their level of power is low. So at the moment, their level of power is low because they are working in isolation on their own in small groups, but they are extremely interested about this space debris problem and pollution tied to this industry. That is why there's a mention about operations of these type of players within the newspaper article. And although their level of power is low at the moment, they can harness the power of regulators and the government, because although I said that regulators and governments are usually powerful, yet they have a low level of interest. As per this newspaper article, they have a high level of interest as well. So although the government carries a low level of interest, as per the newspaper article, they carry a high level of interest. That's why they have come up with the Space Junk Charter, and they are contemplating about further regulating this industry. So we have woken up the bear, and these guys, the environmental advocacy groups, might start poking this bear, which has already woken up, and this will work against us. So with the intention of making sure that we quieten the environmental advocacy groups, which can harness the power of regulators and governments, we have to keep these individuals informed. So when trying to keep these guys informed, we are not supposed to negotiate directly with them, because when we are trying to engage with environmental advocacy groups, this may be perceived as damage control. So this paints a picture where we are trying to get in touch with advocacy groups with the intention of damaging the controlling the situation or addressing the adverse situations which we have faced at the moment, rather than doing so, rather than taking steps to paint such a picture in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of regulators, it's better to use media and come up with our own narrative. So we have to keep these individuals informed. However, this does not mean that we have to deal directly with them. If we try to do so, it might be perceived as damage control, which will further worsen the situation. So in order to better manage these type of stakeholders, we have to use media, both traditional and modern media, and thereby explaining our position with regards to the issue at hand. So that's how we are supposed to manage environmental advocacy groups, thereby keeping them informed by not directly engaging them with them, instead using media to explain our narrative to the public. And when dealing with the government and regulators, as I mentioned earlier, the government usually carries a low level of interest, but since there's a mention about the government taking steps to further regulate the players within this industry, they have a higher level of power and high level of interest. And that is why there's a growing momentum behind the Space Junk Charter, which the government and the regulators had signed already. And when dealing with these individuals, the government and the regulators should be categorized under key players because of their high level of power and interest. So as these players are considered as key players, we have to engage with them directly. And first things first, we have to see whether we can pursue a bridging strategy, which is to change our internal dynamics if needed to fall in line with all rules and regulations. If so, we are showing to the government and regulators that we are ready to listen to them and change ourselves. And at the same time, we can also lobby. Lobbying is a situation where we are involved with CPA, one option of CPA, corporate political activity, where we are trying to influence the government. When trying to influence the government, we should explain the adverse impact of the new laws, not just on us, but on other stakeholders concerning the players within this industry. We can talk about the livelihoods of employees and investments of shareholders. We can talk about suppliers who might be negatively impacted due to these type of laws coming into play. We can talk about clients who might be negatively impacted, our own shareholders, not just our company shareholders, but all shareholders who had invested on this industry might be negatively impacted. So all these things, how our margins will be negatively impacted, and how this will impact share prices, and in turn, how this will impact shareholder confidence. So all these things should be explained in depth when carrying out lobbying initiatives with the intention of changing the laws and regulations to our benefit. I don't know whether we are capable of changing the laws or regulations to our benefit as per the situation at hand. However, we can always try to do this, and at the same time, with the intention of being in the good books of the government and regulators, we have to pursue a bridging strategy, which is to change our internal dynamics. After changing our internal dynamics, in order to avoid further regulation, we can carry out lobbying initiatives. All right, so then let's look at investors and shareholders. So as per the information presented, there's a mention about investors being concerned about the space debris problem and pollution tied to this industry. So this indicates the fact that these shareholders, especially those with ESG interests, have a high level of interest, and shareholders are definitely entities or individuals which carries a high level of power as well. So we are dealing with another set of key players given their high level of power and high interest. So as key players, we have to listen to them, we have to engage with them directly and let them influence the way in which we run our business. So in order to show to them that we are influenced by them, that we are listening to them, we have to provide some type of reassurances, which is to launch a measurable environmental program. So we have to take steps to satisfy these investors and shareholders. If not, if our stakeholders are, or especially our shareholders, are not too happy with the way in which we run our business, then they'll start divesting our shares. If so, our share price will further fall, which is not too good for our standing within the industry, especially concerning our standing within the stock market. So with this in mind, we have to launch a measurable environmental program. And within this program, we have to include information pertinent to carbon emissions reduction targets. We have to make sure that we take steps to design satellites with the intention of reducing the debris problem. We have to improve our deorbiting technology, because if we do so, we are effectively taking steps towards addressing the space debris problem. And at the same time, simply coming up with an environmental program won't help us. We have to come up with appropriate KPIs to keep track of whether we are adhering to these environmental program or environmental standards which we try to implement. And on top of that, we have to keep these investors informed. Therefore, we have to spend our effort on developing integrated reports with the prime intention of keeping the investors informed about our environmental program, whether we are implementing these standards in the most successful manner, and whether we are adhering to the KPIs. All these type of information can be related or shared with the shareholders via our integrated reports. And also, it's prudent to establish a sustainability committee, because there's no such committee within our board. If you look at the board, there are 4 different committees: the audit committee, nomination, remuneration, and what is the other one? Nomination, remuneration, and I can't remember. Where's the pre-scene? We have 4 different committees. Yeah, and a risk committee. So on top of these 4 different committees, it's best that we appoint another committee, which is known as the Sustainability Committee, with the intention of providing leadership, thereby spearheading our environmental program. And when doing so, it's essential that we come up with or appoint a good leader. And I've suggested that we appoint Alice Alves, our senior independent director, to lead the sustainability committee. Why is this the case? This individual has research interests including environmental studies and tracking urban expansion. So she is well versed with environmental studies because she had conducted research concerning this area. So because of that, it's best that we appoint this individual, Professor Alice, as our head of the sustainability committee, so that the committee will know what they are involved with. So that's what I've highlighted within the answer plan. It should be chaired by Professor Alice Alves. And when developing this committee, we have to make sure that a majority are independent, non-executive directors, thereby falling in line with corporate governance best practices. And the responsibility of this committee should be to develop and deliver the sustainability strategy. And if we set up a sustainability committee, we are providing reassurance to our investors about our steadfast belief in our environmental program. If so, we will come up with appropriate strategies to mitigate carbon emissions and address the debris issue, space debris issue. And at the same time, we will have the capability to set up appropriate KPIs to keep track of our performance tied to our environmental program. So that's how we are supposed to make sure that our investors and shareholders are satisfied. Then directing our attention towards our clients. Clients have a high level of power, definitely, given the fact that we are dealing with a limited number of clients. Definitely, each client carries a high level of power. However, their interest will vary. Some of the clients will be really concerned about our environmental issues, and some of the clients will not think too much about our environmental standing. So considering this fact, we have to make sure that irrespective of their interest levels, since they are powerful, it's better to listen to these stakeholders, listen to these clients, and try and satisfy them as much as possible. So we have to offer eco-compliant satellite missions. We have to develop new eco-compliant satellite missions. And also, we should consult existing clients to understand their ESG needs. By understanding their ESG needs, we can figure out which type of customers are really concerned about our environmental or our carbon footprint, our environmental footprint, and then we can take steps to satisfy them in the future. And concerning the general public and media, as per the information presented within the news article, they have a high level of interest, but their power is indirect. They don't have the power to influence us directly. So why am I saying that their power is indirect? Because public opinion can shape behavior of powerful stakeholders. So the public and the media can influence the government and regulators, can influence our clients, can influence our shareholders. So that's why I said that the general public and media carries an indirect amount of power. So these we have to manage these type of stakeholders by publishing a sustainability report, including contributions to responsible space usage, statistics on debris-free missions, which we have developed, and the type of steps taken by our company to minimize emission levels. So that is exactly why I mentioned the fact that it's best that we set up a sustainability committee. If we do so, we are in a position to address the needs of the general public and media. If the general public and media are satisfied with the way in which, or the type of steps which we have taken to address the space debris problem and mitigate the emissions tied to space missions, then they will be satisfied. If so, they will not try to take steps to overly influence the government and regulators or investors against us. And in general, we have to conduct an internal investigation to see whether what's highlighted within this article is factual. If yes, we have to accept fault publicly, and at the same time, we have to commit to corrective action, and we have to inform all stakeholders involved about the type of steps which we have taken to mitigate each type of risk we have identified, or mitigate each type of environmental issue which we are faced with at the moment. All right, so that's how you should structure your answer plan. So you can't, when you're trying to type your final answer, you can't spend some time to think. So it's essential that you spend an appropriate amount of time to think or plan out your entire answer plan. And once you have spent time to plan out your answer plan, your next step should be to expand the answer plan, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So although your answer plan looks like this, your final answer should look like this. So managing stakeholders, I've come up with a main heading, and for each and every point I've highlighted, I've come up with a paragraph. And in each paragraph, you can see that I've come up with 2 or 4 sentences. All right, so that's exactly what you can see if you refer to our suggested answer. So that's how your final answer should look like. All right, so that's what I wanted to highlight. So I hope you gained a good understanding of how important it is that you know your theories, because if you were clueless about the Mendelow's matrix, then you are not in a position to develop a high quality answer. And at the same time, I hope you understood how to work on your application, because when it comes to developing answers, it is not about explaining theoretical concepts. Instead, it is about utilizing your theoretical knowledge and applying it, considering the information at hand. So considering each and every stakeholder highlighted within your newspaper, within the newspaper article, I've considered the level of power and interest of each stakeholder, thereby categorizing each stakeholder. And based on this categorization, I've determined which strategy we should use to manage them. And aligned with this strategy, I've explained practical ways of taking steps to manage each type of stakeholder. That is how you should work on your application skills. All right, so having said that, let's proceed with the webinar. So in each paper, 5 different knowledge areas will be tested, which are tied to developing business strategy concerning your E3 syllabus, evaluating and mitigating risks concerning your P3 syllabus, evaluating business ecosystems and the business environment concerning your E3 syllabus, recommend and maintain a sound control environment concerning your P3 syllabus, and recommending financing strategies concerning your F3 syllabus. So in each mock exam and at your real examination, you will see all these 5 different elements being covered. Sometimes you will be clueless about how each of these 5 areas are covered, but the examiner always takes measures to ensure that all these 5 elements are covered within each and every variant. And when developing our mock exams, we have made sure to cover all these 5 areas in each of the 6 mocks which we have developed. So if you look at this mock exam, FA's comments investing on data analytics technology, it's tied to business strategy. So we are thinking about a business strategy and at the same time evaluating the business ecosystem and business environment, how this new strategy will impact our internal dynamics, our existing business ecosystem. Then director's bonus tied to strategy development, strategies to manage stakeholder pressure tied to strategy development, ethics of allowing competitors to license our deorbiting technology, again tied to strategy evaluation, internal audit responsibilities tied to your P3 syllabus, implications of calling off a dividend, how it will impact our existing internal systems or our business ecosystem, and how to finance IS investments tied to your F3 syllabus, tied to finance decision making, and borrowings, how to deal with breach of debt covenants, again tied to your F3 syllabus, and how to manage currency risks tied to risk management concerning your P3 syllabus. So we have covered all these 5 elements within mock exam 1. So likewise at your exam, you will see all 5 elements being covered. All right. So, and I invite you guys to practice the answering technique by attempting mock exam 1 on TCS Exam platform. I showed you how to gain access to this via our exam platform a while back whilst explaining what we offer at TCS. I hope you'd attempt mock exam 1 now that you are conversant with the answering and time management technique. Implement them and see where you stand as a student. And once you know what your shortcomings are, you can always take steps to overcome these issues in the upcoming 5 weeks. All right, so we are moving to the last part of today's webinar. So some of you might have sat for the previous SCS exam and unfortunately failed the examination. So let's try to figure out how you can rebound from your failure. So first things first, you need to conduct your personal reflection. You have to be honest or truthful to yourself and try and understand whether you gave your best shot in your last sitting. So when conducting this personal reflection, you need to diagnose the reasons which led to a failure first and take steps to avoid these issues when conducting preparations focused on your upcoming exam. So in a little while, I'm going to talk about common reasons which leads to a failure, and focused on each of these reasons, I will explain the type of mitigatory action you need to take to avoid these type of issues. So when I'm explaining these points, try and figure out whether you were exposed to the same set of inefficiencies. And if so, after the session is done, you will understand what you need to do to avoid these type of shortcomings. So conduct your own personal reflection. Try to figure out the type of shortcomings you were exposed to. Try to figure out whether you gave your best shot last time or not. And based on these things, you need to develop an action plan, which is to work smarter than the previous attempt. The smartest way to approach your upcoming exam is to simply stick to our study plan. As per our study plan, you are supposed to attempt a mock exam per week, not just attempt a mock. You are supposed to watch master classes to learn theory and improve application. Once you have learned your theory and application, you are supposed to test for yourself whether you have gained something via the master classes by redeveloping answer plans. After you have redeveloped the answer plans, you are supposed to compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's. So if you stick to this process, it's as if you are revising, focused on the same mock exam 4 times over before you walk into your real exam. That's enough and more practice for you to get your answer plans, answering technique, time management technique, and stress management techniques uh, right before at your real examination. So the smartest way to do is to stick to our study plan. You can access our study plan via our website. So as per the study plan, attempt a mock per week, conduct your revision focused on the same mock exam, and then move on to the next week, again attempting a mock, the weekly mock, and conducting your revision. If you stick to this process, towards the last week, you can start relaxing, because in the last week, as per our study plan, you are simply supposed to go through your answer plans concerning mocks 1 to 6. All right, so let's look at the type of issues most students fail at the examination. Practicing just 2 or 3 mock exams is the biggest problem, okay? Because as I've mentioned earlier, the examiner develops 6 different variants focused on each pre-scene with the intention of covering all syllabus areas. So replicating a similar methodology when conducting your preparations, it's essential that you gain access to 6 mock exams and conduct preparations focused on the same 6 mocks. That is exactly why we have taken steps to develop 6 different mocks. And when developing these 6 mocks, we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas. And at the same time, towards the very end of your pre-scene, you would have seen news articles which indicate the scenarios which will be tested at the exam. And there are 5 different newspaper articles which indicates that 5 different scenarios will be tested. On top of that, another scenario tied to a data breach will be tested at your exam, especially given the fact that there's no mention about, we have not identified the risk of data breaches within our risk report. So definitely, on top of what's highlighted within the newspaper articles, you will also be tested about a data breach. So when attempting mock exams, you have to make sure that you are conversant with how each of these scenarios, which are highlighted within the newspaper article, can be tested at the exam, and tied to these scenarios, how each syllabus area should be tested. So if you try to pass this exam simply by attempting 2 or 3 mock exams, you will be testing your luck at your real exam, because you are half prepared. You won't know how some or certain syllabus areas can be tested at the exam. So the first step towards achieving a pass at your upcoming sitting is to make sure that you make up your mind to attempt 6 mock exams. And if you stick to our study plan, you need not spend a considerable amount of time to attempt the 6 mocks. Do it on a weekly basis so that you have enough time to spend on revision, because after attempting each mock exam, if you spend time to revise, then you are taking steps to further improve your theoretical knowledge and at the same time improve your application skills. And also another problem is not practicing mocks under simulated exam conditions. So it's essential that you are exposed to exam stressors. It's essential that you attempt each mock exam under a time pressured environment, because when you're operating in a time pressured environment, you will be successful in the first section because it is just going to take 60 minutes of your time. But from that point onwards, you will be exposed to fatigue, and fatigue leads to extreme levels of stress. Why am I saying this? Because if you look at the way in which our human brains are designed, or how our human brains function, our attention span is just for the first 45 minutes. All right, so after the first 45 minutes, there's a tendency for our brains to switch off. And, with the intention of switching off our brains will expose us to stressful situations. So when you're exposed to a stressful situation, you will try to take a break. But at the exam, you can't do so. You have to sit in one place across 3 hours and be exposed to extreme levels of stress. So in the first section, you will be comfortable, but from section 2 onwards, due to fatigue, you would be exposed to extreme levels of stress. So it's essential that you are encountering or exposed to these type of stressful situations when conducting your preparations. Then you'd know what you should do to overcome these stressful situations. If not, if you are exposed to these type of stresses for the first time at your exam, you will crumble under pressure. Most students who are, even those who are knowledgeable, who have learned their theories, who are coming through the OTQ route, end up struggling at the real exam, at the SCS exam, primarily given the fact that they assume that they can easily manage exam stress. Therefore, they don't attempt mock exams under exam conditions. I've dealt with students who would simply go through the suggested the questions and suggested answers rather than attempting mock exams. Also, I've dealt with another set of students who'd end up attempting a mock exam in which these students will attempt section number 1 today, section number 2 tomorrow, and section number 3 day after tomorrow. Whereas at the exam, you have to sit in one place and attempt all 3 sections one after the other across 3 hours. So it's essential that you attempt mock exams under exam conditions, which is the only way for you to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. And if you are exposed to these type of issues when conducting preparations, then you will be extremely successful at your real exam, because then you'd know how to manage these type of stressful situations. So it's essential that you practice mocks under simulated exam conditions. That's exactly why we have invested a lot of effort and money to develop an exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system. So make use of this resource at hand in order to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. Also, lack of technical knowledge is a problem which leads to issues tied to application. So I took you through one of the questions in today's session. And if you were clueless about the Mendelow's matrix, I'm pretty sure you will not come up with a good answer. So the first things first, you need to take steps to learn all theoretical elements. That is exactly why we have made sure to cover all theories when developing the 6 mocks. And at the same time, you need to take steps to improve your application skills, because as I mentioned earlier, your answers are not about explaining theoretical concepts. Instead, it's all about applying your theoretical knowledge when developing answers. So that is why you need to attempt each mock exam under exam conditions. And after attempting each mock exam, you need to spend some time to conduct your revision, which is to redevelop answer plans. This is when you are trying to fine-tune your application skills. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, we have developed a set of masterclasses, 15 masterclasses in total. Just like how I explained the answer in today's session, I've explained the answers of mocks 2 to 6, thereby teaching you the relevant theoretical concept covered within each mock exam, and at the same time explaining how to work on your application skills. So if you have knowledge gaps and issues with application, the easiest way to overcome these knowledge gaps and issues with application is to simply watch our masterclasses. And inappropriate answering technique is a problem which leads to mismanagement of time. So the only way to practice this answering technique is to implement these answering and time management techniques across the 6 mock exams which we have developed. If you do so, it's as if you are practicing these techniques 18 times over before you walk into your real exam. So it's essential that you fine-tune your answering and time management techniques. If not, you will definitely run out of time at your exam, and you will lack the capability of structuring answers which are totally aligned with each scenario and its requirement. And lack of revision or lack of evaluation is a problem. That's exactly why I said that there's no point of just attempting the 6 mock exams. Instead, you need to spend some time to conduct your own revision, which is to simply redevelop answer plans. So just because you attempt the 6 mock exams and watch all master classes, you won't pass this exam. Instead, you need to take steps to fine-tune your answering technique. So as I mentioned earlier, don't time yourself when it comes to redeveloping answer plans. Do it on your own. You can take any amount of time. The objective is to understand whether you have gained something by watching the master classes, and trying to understand whether you have the capability of replicating the same type of answer plans when you are redeveloping answer plans. Because if you fine-tune your answering technique, you are halfway through this examination. And not adhering to a study plan is a major problem as well, because most students wait until the last 2 or 3 weeks to start preparations. Although you will have enough time to attempt all 6 mocks within 2 or 3 weeks, you won't have time to conduct revision which is to redevelop answer plans. If you don't have time to conduct revision, then you will struggle at your real examination. So you have to learn and test for yourself whether you are capable of implementing what you have learned, thereby redeveloping answer plans. So these are the reasons which leads to a failure. So I hope you'd stick to you'd understand what I explained. And I think I missed out on a point. Extremely sorry about it. Most students fail because they rely on past exam variants or past papers. Why is this a problem? Because as you know, this is a highly practical examination in which 85% of the questions are intended to test your application skills. And when it comes to application, you need to understand how each syllabus area is tested tied to what appears within your pre-sim. So if you refer to past exam variants or past papers, you will not have a good understanding of the logic behind each answer, because the logic is tied to a totally different pre-scene. So the internal and external dynamics, as well as the financial statements which appear in a totally different pre-scene, will be irrelevant to you. Because if you are to understand the logic behind the answers of past variants, then you have to go through a past pre-scene, master it, which takes a lot of time, and then try and go through the answers, questions and answers, and see, the logic behind each answer. And at the same time, if you look at your pre-scene, the scenarios are developed focused on the newspaper articles or the news articles which appear towards the very end of your pre-scene. So the news articles which are highlighted in this time's pre-scene has nothing to do with the previous pre-scenes news articles or the pre-scenes which came before that. So it's essential that you attempt mock exams which are pre-scene specific. If not, you will be directed on the wrong path. And at the same time, it's essential that you understand what appears within your current risk report, because your risk report, which appears within your pre-scene, is totally different to previous risk reports. Because the risk report, the objective of sharing the risk report is to give you an understanding of how the or the type of risks the company has identified and how they intend to manage them. And when doing so, the examiner will highlight certain loopholes within the risk report, because you won't get a 100% accurate and successful risk report in each pre-scene. There will be shortcomings. So it's essential that you understand these shortcomings when it comes to attempting the mock exams, because if you rely on past exam variants, these variants and the suggested answers concerning each variant will highlight issue tied to a totally different risk report. So it's essential that you attempt mocks which are pre-scene specific and developed concerning or covering all syllabus areas. So I hope you gained a good understanding of the issues which leads to a failure. And if you were exposed to these type of issues, now you know what type of steps you need to take to avoid them when conducting your preparations. So all in all, what I have to say is start your preparations right now if you're planning to sit in May, and stick to our study plan. If you do so, you will have enough time to attempt all 6 mock exams and at the same time conduct your revision. Because if you cover these 2 elements, which is to attempt the weekly mock and conduct your revision on a weekly basis, you will be extremely successful at your real examination. That is why we achieved a 90% pass rate in the November 2024 sitting. So if you are to achieve a similar feat, start right now, stick to our study plan, attempt a mock per week, revise thereby focusing on redeveloping answer plans on a weekly basis. And if you do so in the last week, it's simply a matter of going through the answer plans concerning all 6 mock exams and walking into your exam in a calm and composed, carrying a calm and composed mindset. If so, you would be successful at your real examination. All right, having said that, I'm moving to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk, or drop a message via the chat. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks, thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. So if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and then drop your message here. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours. And you can also directly email us at info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us on this number. And I urge you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops will be uploaded to our YouTube handle. And via TikTok, you would gain access to 6 TikTok videos, which is a good mind map, which covers the entire pre-scene. And this is based on the pre-scene mind map, which we have already shared with you. I hope you are going through this document on a daily basis. And to complement this, we have developed the TikTok videos. So on your way to office, for instance, on a daily basis, keep watching these 6 TikTok videos, thereby taking steps to constantly keep yourself reminded of what appears within your pre-scene document. So if you do so, you need not do anything to remember the most important points highlighted within your pre-scene. Simply refer to the TikTok videos and the pre-scene mind map, which we are sharing with you free of charge. And also, if you are yet to read our blog post focused on your chosen company, Leothayre, do so by going to our blog handle and click on this button to read the entire blog post. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the third webinar. And I hope you gained a good understanding of what you need to achieve in the upcoming weeks. And at the same time, you understood the answering and time management technique and how to implement it in a practical sense. Also, I hope you understood the importance of practicing this answering and time management technique in the upcoming 5 weeks to make sure that you are successful at your real examination. So I urge you to start preparations right now. If you are yet to commence your preparations, most of you who had invested on our paid content have already watched the pre-scene analysis videos. So kudos to you. So now you should direct your attention towards attempting mock exams under exam conditions, and after that, redeveloping answer plans and conducting your revision. So start right now so that you'd have enough time to relax closer to the exam, which is going to be extremely beneficial for you at your real examination. So if you have any questions or concerns, always drop me a message via WhatsApp. And I hope to see you at next week's webinar, in which I'm going to take you through examiners' comments and also, most importantly, highlight stress management techniques with you. And from next week onwards, after learning these stress management techniques, you are supposed to implement not just the answering and time management techniques when practicing each mock exam, you are supposed to implement stress management techniques as well. So I expect to see you guys next Saturday. Thank you very much for joining and take care.